Equalizer, I'm excited to welcome John Kelley for our second part interview. Someone who has worn a lot of hats. He started out in the Army Elite Ranger Regiment, served overseas several times, and later moving to law enforcement. After his time in uniform, he didn't slow down. Instead, he built a business in construction and has gone out of his way to support fellow veterans in his community, from volunteering with organizations like Gallant Few and Living Hope, Equine Therapy, to serving as a local council member. PK always looking for ways to give back. He brings real-world grit and insight to this conversation about leadership and service, both on and off the battlefield. PK, thanks for joining us. Welcome back to the second part of this amazing interview with PK Kelley. Welcome back, PK.
Thank you, sir.
You don't have to call me sir. I work for a living. Remember that?
I've heard that before. Yeah.
The other. Okay. Has collaboration with Mexican or other Latin American intelligence improved, or are major barriers still on the way?
In certain aspects, I would say that they've improved, but major barriers still exist. And for whatever reason, we continue to hit the same roadblocks, and it's mind-boggling as to why those things still happen. When it's not money, it's not like I can't figure it out, except for the fact that they may be getting paid more by China than they are through us, and that's, there's just a lot there outside of obvious corruption stuff on both sides. Let's be honest here. We have corruption in America, and so that just needs to be put out there.
What fixes would you recommend to close funding and resource gaps for states and local in homeland security priorities?
Well, there's a couple different things that, in my assessment that I've done of law enforcement kind of across the country, in order for recruiting, for everything from recruiting to the actual quality of life as a law enforcement officer at any level, funding has to triple. Not double, triple. And the reason for that is we have these waves of, we'll hire a bunch of people, and then, okay, great. We just hired 10, and we're going to use the number 10. We just hired 10 people. How many of those officers do you think are going to make it for a full career?
Very little.
Right. Maybe 3 out of the 10.
And the reason is you have a lot of nepotism and a lot of family clans within law enforcement in the United States. Meaning, if you're not in the loop, you could take all the tests you want. Yeah, you could get promoted to sergeant, you could become a lieutenant and all of that. But you'll reach a certain rank of captain. After that, it takes you to know people that want to push you in your career. If not,
right,
anywhere. Then, if you don't take the test, let's say 10 people go into law enforcement, at least 6 or 7 will be dismissed for any amount of little bureaucratic or violations of policies or whatever that are going to oblivious. Then you have whistleblowers that report corruption, that report mismanagement, and they themselves become targets of their own police department.
Right.
And as you could see, it happened to a retired FBI agent with a long career in New York. There is a lawsuit going on with several high-ranking officers, including an interim police commissioner that is suing the police department, claiming that the police department is being run by the current administration as a criminal enterprise.
Right.
It is very detailed if you take the 200 and something pages, and people could downplay it and call him, unstable, crazy, this, that, disgruntled, and all of that. But if you call him disgruntled, why was he not disgruntled when you hired him?
Right.
He only became disgruntled when he started seeing that things didn't work the way you wanted to work. It happened with Serpico. It happened with David Dirk. It happened with Schoolcraft. It happened with many, many great officers that in the NYPD that stood up against the blue wall of silence, that wouldn't let them get intimidated, and they cut their careers short.
Right.
They went to fight their pensions. They had to fight their pensions, got their pensions fighting. But so when they say, well, we're not getting enough people to come into law enforcement, who wants that job? Who really wants that job?
Yep.
In one door, they're telling you, we're recruiting you. And in another door, they're kicking you out.
Right.
They don't take into account whether you were a veteran, whether you had a lot of commendations when you were in the military. They don't take your experience. They don't take your language ability. They don't take anything. And then you see people with no credentials, with no background, went from McDonald's into the police department, take a 300 question test, and become your supervisor. And now they know everything.
Right.
Pro guy, so they know everything. And if you don't listen to them because they're in a leadership position, then you're in hot water.
Yeah, and I think that there's even it goes back to that, I call it the old guard of law enforcement, but that it's that old school mindset, that good old boy system that has, I would say that law enforcement is kind of not just lived by, but it's dying by it at this point. Law enforcement is dying by the good old boy system. And it's sad, like in the state of Texas, the average officer is 39 and a half years old. They're an officer for 11 years. That means from the time they get hired to the time that they're on their own, let's go back to that 2 to 3 year window. That means they're only on the street by themselves for 8 to 9 years before they're no longer an officer. That is a terrible return on investment for the state of Texas or for a local agency in the state of Texas. It's a horrendous return on investment if I'm paying this person for 2 years minimum, 2 to 3, and then they're going to be in training where they are not, if you look at it from a business perspective, if somebody is going to be a profitable asset to my business, that means that I need that person to produce in revenue dollars to be worth double what they're earning in order for me to maintain a healthy business for every single person that I have. That means that officer we're paying them, plus we're paying for training, plus we're paying for benefits and all these other things. And then they're only an officer for 3 maybe 4 times the amount of time it took us to get them completely trained. 3.5. That's not a good return. It's horrendous. And so until agencies understand that you have deep-rooted cultural problems and it's a systemic problem across the country, regardless of whatever level of law enforcement. Doesn't matter if it's Border Patrol. Doesn't matter if it's the FBI. The FBI being one of the worst, because if you get a target on your back with the FBI, you are, if they want to find something on somebody, they'll figure out a way to charge you with something. It's just what they'll do, and so it's a major problem, and it's something until the current administrators have to take a step back, a deep look in the mirror, and say, I heard somebody recently say, leave a trail, in this life, leave a trail. Well, what type of trail are they leaving if this is how they're leaving their agencies worse than they found them? That's not a good look.
Let me ask you in that note, how should professional training change in the next wave of Homeland Security leaders as the mix of threats keeps getting faster and more complex?
I would say training has to be focused around adaptability versus training being so very stuck on policy and procedure, because policy and procedure, it takes an act of God to move mountains, and that is, mountains are what policy and procedure are in law enforcement. In order to get those changed, it takes it takes God to be able to move those things. I mean, it's just, that's how difficult it is to move them and to change them. And so the mindset shift has to be from, we're not going to focus on policy and procedure as much as we're going to focus on adaptability and treating it like an aggressive form of cancer. In order to treat that aggressive form of cancer, you have to be ready for multiple avenues of treatment, even if they're all at the same time. You have to be ready for that.
Don't you think that we make a mistake in the United States when we see people in Washington as our leaders instead of seeing us as our representatives? And I wanted to ask you that because, for example, city council people in the city of New York, people say our leaders decided that should. They're not our leaders. They're not my leader. They represent me because I voted for them. That's if I voted for them. But they're not my leaders. And, they get into these offices, whether it's in Washington, whether it's in one of the state offices, and then they all become experts on law enforcement. They all become experts on national security. They all become experts, and you really take a look at, and they are reading verbatim from the newspapers. It's not right. Actual knowledge. So, when they say defund the police, and they go along, we have
right.
to defund the police.
Right.
They're not measuring the consequences that's going to bring. If the police are the only line of defense between the citizens and the criminals, if we defund them, who's going to stand up for protecting those citizens in those towns, cities, or in the country?
And I think we use the term leadership kind of roughly, right? Like, compared to what it's meant to be. I think that politicians will label themselves as leaders, and it's kind of trickled down into society as that's what we consider them, and not just representatives. But we do look to them to be leaders. Being a leader and calling yourself a leader are two different things. And leaders are meant to make hard decisions in tough situations. That's what leaders do. Whether that's collectively as a group of representatives, Congress, so the House side and the Senate side, they have to be willing and able to make tough decisions to do the right thing to protect the American people collectively. That is leadership. If they don't, And they have the ability to do the same thing and say, Mr. President, we're calling on you to take this action for the American people. That is leadership. When they go to the president and say, do this. Most of the time, that's not going to happen, though. They only do it when they want to bitch and complain about something. They don't do it preventatively on behalf of the American people for the betterment of the American people. They only do it when something's gotten so bad that they don't have a choice because they know that they're going to not get voted back in, or in other similar type cases. But it's typically when they're complaining. It's not when to do something in preventative action to save lives. Case in point, the floods in Texas, 100% preventable, or at least the loss of life was preventable. And so I think that there's this very big misconception on what leadership truly is. And leadership is the ability to lead people. They follow you without threat or coercion. That's leadership.
And now let me stop you there. Every time we turn on the news, mainstream media, and we see the Democrats or the Republicans, they can never agree on anything. We have years and years of them putting obstacles on things to get done because of their own personal agenda. Where does that have to take a step back and say, we are here for the American people. We're not here for our own careers.
See, that's where it's up to us to raise alarm, and to other people in office to call out those individuals' character. And we should be able to remove them immediately for not upholding their oath of office.
And we don't.
And we don't do it. That's right.
One of the biggest problems, you have people sitting for years and years and years getting elected, and when you look at the record, they haven't passed anything. They do drafts. They try to put a lot of bills together, but nothing goes through. They never did anything that meant something to the people that they represent. Talking about the situation in Texas, there were supposedly political people that were supposed to be there, but they went on vacation. They took off like if there was nothing happening. If you represent the people of Texas, don't you think it would be important for you to cancel your vacation because your people are dying and drowning and your people need you? Because that's what they elected you for.
Right. You would think.
Right. Every time there's something like in Washington with the Epstein file, no, we're taking a break. We're going on break.
I've even, and I was surprised that he even said it, but J.D. Vance, the vice president, at one point, I want to say he stated this during the campaign, but he said if Washington and politicians are really good at creating distractions, and that the real work is being done behind the scenes and we're a body of distractors more than we are anything. He said something along those lines. Don't quote me. That's not an exact quote. I was certainly paraphrasing, but I truly believe that they are very good at distracting the American people from what's really going on or what they're really negotiating. Let's take the budget reconciliation bill, for instance. How many people took the time to read 998 pages of that bill? I'm willing to bet that the congressmen and the senators themselves did not read that entire thing. And that's a problem. Why does it have to be so complicated? Why do we always have to backdoor something in there for you, Mr. Democrat or Mr. Republican? Why don't we always have to backdoor something in there for you? It shouldn't be that way. The truth is there's so many people on the far right and there's so many people on the far left. And the truth is the majority of the country is literally sitting between, if you were to draw two lines on a chart, the majority of the people are sitting at that. If the left is 1 to 49 and the right is 51 to 100, the majority of the American people sit between that 40 mark and that 60 mark. We're actually closer together than we are far apart. And the problem is that far 10 to 15% on the right and the far 10 to 15% on the left is what makes the news, because that's what makes headlines. That's what grabs people's attention and ruffles everybody's feathers, versus us coming together to talk about what we agree upon. And I would go as far to say that the majority of American people don't want to have fires in their home state. They don't want to have their young children swept away because we were too stupid to not put up a warning system along the river, when the governor boasts about a $25 billion surplus in the budget, but yet we can't put in a $75,000 warning system along the river. Imagine that, right? We can't have actual fusion centers for intelligence when it comes to homeland and national security. Like, the list goes on. But all of these things are things that should be agreed upon, where it shouldn't even be a question. The problem is it's all about that 15% to the right and that far 15% on the left that get all of the attention, and nobody's focusing on what really matters, because at the end of the day, the politicians only give a damn about themselves. Just ask Tan Parker in Texas. He's a state senator. He's really good at that.
Let me take a little detour. And since the war on terror started in 2001 till the end of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, approximately 62 Rangers lost their life in combat in different circumstances. One of them was a good friend of yours by the name of Sergeant Thomas Raymond McPherson.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that was very dear to you. Can you tell me something about Sergeant McPherson, or Mac as he was called by?
A number of years ago, I wrote a song called "Daddy's Son." I've done some interviews about that song, but yeah, he was my first team leader in Ranger Regiment, or in 2nd Ranger Battalion when I got there, and I wrote a song about his son, Braden, that lives. His widow remarried another Ranger. Actually, they're doing really well, but I wrote a song for his widow and his son at the time, and that we wrote that. Me and another Ranger wrote that song in 2017, something like that.
How has the loss of life in combat and the combat experience changed you as a human being? From the young recruit that went into basic, jump school, AIT, and Ranger training, how did being outside of the United States, fighting for your country and for the American public, change your view since your return?
I would say that's I learned a lot, and I grew up, you go into war as a boy, essentially, even though you think you know everything, and you're full of testosterone and ready, you think you're ready to fight, but you'll know when things happen, whether you are or not. I mean, you're only going to do two things: either you're going to react and your training is going to take over, or you're going to, it happens to, even in special operations, the whole fight or freeze thing, it happens. And guys, doesn't happen often, but people do slip through the cracks, whether it's SEAL training or Ranger training or whatever. There's no selection process that's 100% perfect, but you trust in that training, and nothing about war bothered me, what happened to enemy combatants. Everything that bothered me, obviously, was the loss of, like you mentioned, the other Rangers, um, and the guy. Like, I escorted a soldier home that I happen to know from here in Dallas Fort Worth, and I was like a mentor to him. His name was Andrew Krippner. I carry the load every year with his family. I believe I sent you a picture of me in front of his poster. And so I walk that. We look for his poster every year, and it's his mom's favorite day of the year. So he was an only son. It's those things, I think, like most of us, we would trade places with our buddies if we could. I know I would with a number of them. Just I don't have kids of my own yet, so it's easy for me to say that. But at the same time, I look at life differently. It's obviously it's a bit more precious, but at the same time, I think that there's something incredibly unique about the American soldier, sailor, Marine. Whether it was I was in contact with the Marines at the Abbey Gate before they were killed due to the suicide bomber, and the uniqueness of what every American soldier, sailor, or Marine brings to the table and to the fight is we are the only ones in the world that, we can say we're fighting for the American people, but ultimately we're not fighting for just the American people. We're fighting for other people that can't fight for themselves. And that's unique. That's special. I know for a fact that there's now generations of Afghan people that are changed today and are better off and are in a better place because we were in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is one day going to be a better place. It's not necessarily today, because a lot of us are far too sighted to see what is going on over, and most people don't understand or realize what's actually happening behind the scenes over there. But Afghanistan is going to be far better off in the future because we were there, and we may return and it'll be better. But for the people that did get out from underneath the grips of the Taliban, and for that region, and for Iraqis, they are far better off today because the American public, or the American soldiers, were there and the Marines were there, and we got to show them a little bit of the heart and of the soul and of what we don't care if you're a woman or if you're a child, if you're male or female, we're going to treat you the same, and we're going to treat you with dignity and respect. And ultimately, we're the only country in the world that will shoot you in the face while we're fighting, and then we'll treat you if you're still alive. We're the only ones that do that, and that's special.
And if we destroy something, we rebuild it.
That's right. And we don't, people can say that we're, and I almost want to laugh about it, but even though it's not a funny subject, but say that we're colonialist and all that type of stuff. No, that was the British. And you don't know history if you think that we're not there to conquer anything. We're not there to hoist the American flag and bring yours down to never be raised again. Matter of fact, we're going to raise your flag with our flag, and we're going to provide you the security, both economically and militarily, that you can't provide on your own. That's what we do. We're going to raise your flag with our flag. It's not here to take yours down and burn it or whatever. And it doesn't matter where that is in the world. We're the only ones that do that.
Let me ask you, what organizations, for our listeners, can veterans like yourself or myself turn to in the event that they're suffering from PTSD, alcoholism, drug abuse? Substance abuse is big when you have mental issues that are not treated properly. We as men and women in the military, sometimes we have too much pride to say, I need help, I have a problem, or we don't want to get stigmatized by a system that is set up that if you say you have a problem, they're going to try to crumble you down lower than you already are.
Right.
In your guns, and it happens in police work all the time. If a good police officer, detective, or supervisor says, I have a problem, the first thing they do is they put him in the rubber gun squad. They remove his guns for 2 or 3 years. Instead of helping them, they punish them. And that's why many officers commit suicide, because they don't have a place to turn. Can you give us or give the listeners a couple of organizations that you recommend that will help soldiers that are facing that?
Yeah, I'll start by stating, because this is something I've been through. I went through the Warrior Path program that's put on by Boulder Crest Foundation. It's incredible. The entire program is written by soldiers, for soldiers. It's incredible. It's a 1 week intensive, and then you go through it with your small team of your class, and then it's an 18-month long program. It's awesome. Changed my life. And they do those all around the country now. So Boulder Crest Foundation's one. I would recommend the Gary Sinise Foundation as another. The Gary Sinise Foundation has built a medical network and a mental health network across the country that is separate from the VA. And so you can go to them. They're fantastic. The Travis Manion Foundation is another one. And they're primarily based in the Northeast, but they'll help people all over the country. Those are kind of three of the biggest ones that are off the top of my head for those particular reasons. There's a host of others that I know about. I always tell people to always get plugged in with the Wounded Warrior Project if you're not. And because it opens, one of the things that the Wounded Warrior Project has been really, really good at, and they had a lot of stigma surrounding them for years, but they've done a lot to clean it up. I happen to know one of the board members who also is the executive director of the Three Rangers Foundation. It's Command Sergeant Major Mike Hall. He was the Command Sergeant Major of all of ISAF when I served in Afghanistan. So he served under General McChrystal in Afghanistan, and he was his Sergeant Major. And so they've cleaned up everything. And I tell guys, go get plugged in with the Wounded Warrior Project. Whether that's getting your VA claims completed, they'll help you with that. You need financial guidance and classes, they'll help you with that. You need PTSD work or TBI work, they'll help you with all of those things. So they're a good start.
They also have for the Green Berets, they have the Green Beret Foundation, which is does a lot of good things for people that were in special forces.
They're excellent. Task Force Dagger is very good. I also recommend for special operations veterans, the Honor Foundation when it comes to transition assistance. For the Ranger community, they need to get plugged in with Three Rangers Foundation. I'm a mentor there. If guys are getting out and they're looking to come to Texas or to DFW, they can link up with me through the Three Rangers Foundation, and I'll go to lunch with them or do calls virtually or whatever to help them. But there's a host of those types of organizations that are just incredible. But Three Rangers, the Honor Foundation, there's a couple others that when it comes to transition assistance that are really, really good. A lot of those are on, if you go to one, the others will have links to the others, because you just can't simply serve everybody, even though, we do the best we can to accommodate everybody, but one might be better at something than somebody else, and they're looking for that specific thing. And I know Three Rangers in particular not only has a lot of links on their website for other organizations, but also for veteran spouses, assistance during transition as well.
Uh, there is one organization that you did not mention, but that I found really interesting. Is the one where you take soldiers and wounded soldiers or soldiers with PTSD to be around horses and
Oh yeah.
can you please tell us about that?
Yeah. So, normally I am in a cowboy hat. You just get the pleasure of seeing me tonight without one on, but I normally am in a cowboy hat because I ride often. I'm on the board of an organization called Living Hope Equine Therapy, and so we have a program for veterans, and we also have a program for kids with disabilities. We call them kids; they could be young adults as well, with cognitive or physical disabilities or both. And what we do is part of the program that we offer and what's mandatory is for the veterans to volunteer with the kids. And the reason for that is these kids, they were born with their disabilities, again, cognitive, physical, or both. And for us as veterans, and another unique part of the American military is we're an all volunteer force. Nobody put a gun to your head and said you have to join the military, sign here. We held up our hand, we swore our oath, and we signed our name on our own accord. And the kids did not choose the life that they have, but they have a lot of passion. They celebrate every little milestone, however minuscule it may be to us that we take for granted, but it's a joy. It's a true joy to watch them celebrate those things and reach those goals that they set for each other. And I've even gone around sometimes with a video camera or with my phone and asked the kids, "What's your goal this year?" And that's something that how many people ask somebody with Down syndrome or autism what's their goal this year? And they're a lot smarter than what people give them credit for. And
it's very rewarding. I think that the children give you so much love, and
right.
A lot of veterans, when they come back, they lose that sense of touch, that sense of belonging. There's something, I spent almost 6.5 years in the Army, and almost 5 years and 3 months were foreign service. I was stationed in Europe.
Right.
During the Cold War, it was not during regular war. But nonetheless, separation from family, people die and you don't go to funerals because you're overseas.
Right.
And you still have a duty. I mean, one of the things that it really surprises me is that a lot of veterans don't utilize their benefits, specifically their VA benefits. A lot of them don't know how to put their VA claims in. Do you have some advice for those veterans that might be listening to us?
Yeah, I simply tell them get plugged in and call. The Wounded Warrior Project has people that work specifically. They work for Wounded Warrior Project, not for the VA, but that's all they do is help get claims in. And if you're in the middle of ETSing or transitioning, get your claims in before you leave the military. It's far easier to do it while you're still on active duty versus waiting. It doesn't matter if you're waiting a year or two, whatever, thinking that, oh no, I'm fine, I'll be able to handle it, and go ahead and do it. Do yourself a favor and go ahead and get it done. And if you can't get plugged in with the Wounded Warrior Project or others, go see every county in the United States has a veteran service officer in every single one of them. Go talk to them. And if you served in a foreign war, which as of right now, most veterans have, spend the $15 and join the VFW or whatever. And they have service officers as well that can help you. So that's another avenue, couple of avenues to get help.
PK, if multinationals or companies want to hire your company, how can they get a hold of you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, which is very simple. If you type in John being my first name, my legal name, then PK, and then Kelley, Kelley on LinkedIn. You can go to my profile. There's a number of ways you can get in touch with me on there, or email, which is very simple as well. It's just pk@orangediamond.net. And those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Thank you for being in the show today. I hope that this is one of the many times. I know I could always count with you as a brother, and you could always count with me. And I thank you for your time and your kindness in answering all of these questions. And I want to take a moment of silence for all of the warriors in the special operations community and the veterans that died in all of the foreign wars, and those that never came back because they're missing somewhere in the jungles or the oceans and places around the world. Take a minute to reflect on their sacrifice. Thank you, PK.
Thank you.
God bless you. Stay safe, and we'll be talking.
Likewise. Sounds good, sir.
All right. Remember that. Don't
I know. I had to at least one last time.
All right, my brother.
Have a good night.
Good night. That wraps up today's episode of Equalizer. A huge thanks to you, our guest, to John P. Kelley, for sharing his powerful insight, his service, and his continued commitment to leadership and community. To our listeners, thank you for spending your time with us. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and tune in to our live radio show every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A big thanks to our production team for making this all happen behind the scenes. We couldn't do it without you. We'll see you next time. Stay strong, stay curious, and keep pushing forward. God bless you all.